more from
Yeah.
us.
Well, I
Okay,
was
maybe someone
expecting-
will jump after.
I dare.
Okay, so Ariel, first, thank you so much for accepting the invitation on this talk. I would like to start with saying, now you have been involved in since 1994 in, so I would say pre-internet boom, in so many interesting startups. Now the first ad network, link exchange, then I think the first mobile or big mobile AdMob, stumble upon so many great companies. But I don't want to talk about this company or what they are now. This is not so interesting for me, because what I really want to know is how everything started.
Sure.
So, and for you personally, so how did you get into technology? What was the beginning of everything?
Yeah. So I'm originally from Venezuela. So like most of you here, foreigner to Silicon Valley. And I'm a geek, so I studied math and computer science, and I was into technology. I wanted to do a startup. Back then, so we're talking in the early 90s, this is before there were amazing incubators like PyCampus or Y Combinator. There were no seed funds. So I thought that a good way of doing a startup would be to go to grad school, to business school, as a launch pad. So I was fortunate to get into Stanford. So I was at Stanford Business School. And I was looking at technology, going crazy. Oh, what am I going to do? I couldn't figure it out. An online service for kids, CD-ROM museums. And then this is 1993, and the web came along. So I'm like, wow, this is it. So very good timing. And I decided, brainstorming with some friends, we said, oh, people are going to market. Well, somebody's sabotaging our call from.
Yeah.
So we figured somebody's going to use this for marketing, because back then there was no marketing on the web, and they're going to need measurement. So I decided to start the first web analytics web measurement company in early 1994.
Whoa.
And
So from school, you didn't decide to go to get a job?
no.
Anyone?
I
So why?
Yeah.
How is it?
I was not interested. I mean, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to, and here's an interesting thing. I was a foreigner. I had a student visa, but in the US, they give you a 1-year practical training. So it's 1 year during which you can work without a visa. I'm pretty sure you still get that after a student visa. So I said, okay, I have 1 year. I'm going to try to do a startup, and if it's successful, they will be able to sponsor me for a visa. If not, I go get a job. So it was very easy mentally to say 1 year, and I'm not worrying about it. And then being at Stanford, I was fortunate that some of the other really early internet people were around me. So I was telling you earlier that, for example, Jerry Yang and David Filo had at the time what was called the Jerry and David Guide to the Web, which became Yahoo. But they were engineering students across the street. I called them, hey guys, I need some help programming. They helped me build my first software.
So do I understand correctly that you hired the two co-founders of Yahoo to help on your company?
For $25 an hour, yes.
Okay.
That was good.
Okay, that's a good way to start. So did ever the fact that you worked with them so early, did this convert into other opportunities in the future?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the beauty of being involved with the early internet is that it was a very small group. So we would go, Jerry and me and Halsey Minor, who started CNET, and Mark Andreessen, and there were 10 of us. So the networking was very, very powerful. And for example, I introduced Jerry to my initial investors, and then he introduced me to Mike Moritz, who was from Sequoia, his investor. So clearly the networking helped a ton. And then Yahoo became the first customer of iPro, so we were doing web analytics for them. Yeah, it was very helpful.
And so, but at one point, from being an entrepreneur, you started helping companies. Mm-hmm. And now I know you've been the chairman of Link Exchange.
Yeah.
And Link Exchange then was acquired by Microsoft for $300 million. Mm-hmm. And it's been now the first advertising network before DoubleClick, before what you see in Google AdWords, whatever. It's this incredible idea of exchanging banners, and then a portion of it you can sell it. So how happened the transition from being an entrepreneur?
Yeah. Well,
helping companies?
so I started AdMob in 94. By 96, even though it had been 2 years, it was very high profile. And so I was being asked to talk at events and universities. And so I became high profile. And then entrepreneurs would reach out to me and say, hey, can I pitch you my idea? Can you help me? And I did what I could. And then in 96, late 96 to 97, we actually brought someone else to run iPro, someone more experienced, and I just became chairman of the company. And one of my board members at iPro was on a few other boards, including DoubleClick, but he was running one of the early ad agencies, and he said, oh, I'm having so much fun with the boards. I wish I could do that full time. I wish I didn't have a day job. So when I left iPro day to day, I thought, I wonder if I can do what David suggested and go be a board member in a few companies. And at the time, I was getting a lot of requests for help. And part of that was Tony Shea and Ali Pertovi, who were the Link Exchange founders, Mark Gainey, Michael Horwath, who were starting Kana Software, and the founders of one other company, Silicon Investor. And then I said, okay, how about if I help each of you for 1 or 2 days a week?
So the idea was not really to get a job as a board member, but really to go there and help the companies. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I had two.
Were you receiving a lot of salary from
No,
those
no,
positions?
so no salary.
Okay.
It was all equity, and I didn't have money to invest because iPro still was private. But fortunately, I didn't need the income. At the time, my wife, who's somewhere here, was a PhD student. Oh, there she is. So I think, if I recall correctly, we had her little salary. So I'm like, okay, for a little while, I can get equity and just help them. And that worked out pretty well.
So, but that's an incredible lesson learned for the people here. So you're saying you have experience, you join as a board member without asking any salary, and in exchange you get some equity, and then you sell the company for 300 million.
Well, forget the 300 million. Kana Software went public and up to a valuation of $11 billion.
Oh.
So yeah, that was the good one.
Oops.
Yeah, but that's a really interesting lesson, which is sometimes very high-profile companies, people go, hey, I'll tell another story. I was on the board of StumbleUpon, and on the same week that StumbleUpon got acquired by eBay for 80 million, a company I was an investor that very few people know called Nextag, which was an early e-commerce company, got acquired for $1 billion. No one called me to congratulate me on Nextag, but everybody's like, oh, StumbleUpon, congratulations, congratulations. So it's not always obvious.
Yeah.
Sometimes the high
brands.
profile, the pretty ones.
No, I was a big user, big fan of Link Exchange, so for me.
Yes. Oh, it was good too.
Yes. Okay, and so Link Exchange, one of the first, if not the first, advertising network. And then you get involved with another one that was AdMob. That probably was the first or biggest advertising network on mobile. So, and how the connection happened?
So actually, Roberto Bonansinga, who's here somewhere, if I'm not mistaken,
That was
introduced me.
the speaker of the previous
Well,
session.
he's back there. I believe Roberto introduced me to Omar, who was the founder of AdMob, when Omar was just a graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania, Wharton. It wasn't even mobile. I mean, it was mobile, but it's WAP, before mobile web.
Yeah.
And it's a great story because I meet him, I think he's great, I like what he's doing, and he's putting together a little angel round, and by that time I was doing small angel investments, and I guess my background was relevant, so we hit it off, and I'm like, count me in. And he's trying to put this round together, and the angel who was leading the round, I was just co-investing, backed out. Again, it was not at all obvious, because this WAP thing, we're like, what is this WAP thing gonna be? So he backs out, the deal falls apart. Many of the most successful companies really struggle to raise money. I mean, it's like most of them, actually. So this goes away, and then I forgot how months later, I see in the news, Sequoia invests in AdMob. And I'm like, wow. So I send an email to Omar. Hey, Omar, that's awesome. Congratulations. And then he replies, oh, thank you. You know what? I would love to have you involved. Do you want to co-invest with Sequoia? I'm like, okay. And that turned out to be a very valuable email for me. I mean, it's like, wow, that email was worth a lot because then AdMob got acquired for $1 billion by Google. So, yeah.
So sometimes doing things that you've been you as an investor, it's kind of you lost the deal because someone else did, but you still sent an email to congratulate. So many people will stop and say, no, okay, I lost my money. I partnered with the wrong investor and I lost it. You sent an email, and because you were nice at the beginning with them, they gave back to you.
Yeah, I mean, particularly in Silicon Valley, so much about relationships. It's not transactional. It's about building relationship, building goodwill. I analyzed a little while ago where were most of my deals coming from, and the number one source of deals were the entrepreneurs that I had turned down, which initially go like, what? You turn them down, and that's where the most of the deals you do come from? But if you think about it, I turned down 25 times or 100 times more entrepreneurs I invest in, so there are lots more of those. And then even though I'm turning them down, I'm trying to be helpful, make a connection, give them a little bit of advice. So then maybe I said no, but down the road, a friend of theirs is doing a startup, or they're doing another startup, and they go, hey, Ariel, you were not interested in my previous startup, but how about my friend's startup? So yeah, it really, it pays off, but probably more importantly, it's just more enjoyable to be nice and helpful than anything else.
You probably have a very, very nice way of saying no, because so many...
Well, yes and no. I think I have a very helpful way of saying no, not necessarily nice. I tend to be blunt, and I will tell entrepreneurs, most investors don't want to, they all want to leave the door open. Yeah. So they try to say no in a way, I'm really interested, but you're too early or you're too late, and just try to give an excuse that it's not helpful, but that keeps the doors open. I try to tell them, look, I think this business is not good because of this, your marketing strategy or your team or whatever. Most entrepreneurs appreciate that. Some of them don't like being told in their face what's wrong or argue about it, but it works for me.
Very nice. And so there is another story that it was different. You were helping the founders of Twitter before Twitter was born, Odeo, yes. Right?
Yeah.
And that was a completely different things that happened, and the dynamics of that.
Yeah, that didn't work out so good for me. But so I was on the board of Odeo. Odeo was an early podcasting company that Evan Williams, who had started Blogger, was co-founder, and I knew him, and I thought podcasting was going to be huge. I guess I was 15 years too early. I mean, it's becoming huge now, but this was 05 or something like that, so 13 years. So anyway, I was on the board, and Odeo wasn't doing very well, so Evan told his team, hey, try other ideas. One of the junior guys in the team was Jack Dorsey, and Jack said, oh, why don't we do this little SMS thing called Twitter? We all thought that was kind of cool, so we helped him move that forward. But it didn't have a lot of traction. It was just part of Odeo. Evan decided he was about to get married. He was already very wealthy. He came to the board and said, guys, I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. So we as a board were like, what do we do? It was me and a venture capitalist, were the two lead board members. Said, we should try to sell Odeo, with or without Twitter, because what you do with a company that has no traction and the founder doesn't want to do it anymore. Yeah. So we went around and they asked me, the independent board member, to go, and I hired a little investment bank. And I thought, this Twitter thing might be interesting to MySpace. This is back when MySpace was still around doing okay. Yeah. So we went to MySpace and say, this can help you compete with Facebook, this Twitter thing. No one would buy Odeo with or without Twitter for $1. Nobody, anywhere. So after a few months of trying this, we had a board meeting, and the BC said, we should just shut everything down, give the money back that's left. I said, I think there might be something there, but why don't we keep it going, maybe lower the burn rate? And then Evan said, I've changed my mind. I don't want to have a company, but I want to have an incubator. So I'm going to start an incubator. It's going to be called Obvious. And Odeo is going to be one of the projects, and Twitter is going to be another of the projects. And someone else is going to run Odeo, and Jack is going to run Twitter, and we'll see. So he bought everyone back. And I'm wealthy, I'm going to buy all the investors. So he did that. And at that point, a few months later, Twitter took off. And then he did a financing, and some of the Odeo investors invested in Twitter. I did not, which is why it didn't end up working so well for me. But it was still a very, very incredible experience.
It's an incredible story to share. No, the idea that pivoting sometimes if you follow a great entrepreneur, sometimes pivoting is the right thing, but it was very hard to decide and to understand.
And no one even, it's not like they found Jack or anyone there really had the vision of what Twitter was going to become.
Okay.
It just, it was more about like, okay, hey, friends, I'm eating a tuna sandwich. Isn't that cool? And we were like, maybe.
That's great. So many people here will think, okay, now, what makes Ariel decide that this is a good investment? How do you decide if you like an entrepreneur to invest in? Because you said no to many, many companies, but you said yes to those. So what those had in common that you like it?
Yeah. I'll say one thing that I think is pretty consistent, at least in Silicon Valley. And you know, Silicon Valley is such a planet to its own. So some of the things that I say apply there and don't apply anywhere else. And by the way, it's not California. It's definitely not the US, and it's not California. It's just Silicon Valley. If you're from Sacramento or from LA, it's just still, you might as be from Rome. It's just a different universe. I think one of the things that's pretty consistent is most investors want to be excited. There's something about it that gets us excited. It's not about checking the boxes. Oh, do they have team? Yes. Do they have market? Yes. Do they have? No, something gets you excited. And then there might be problems, but if something gets you really excited, then you think about it hard. For me personally, after I meet a team, I ask myself, was that fun? Did I enjoy that the last 45 minutes or an hour? If the answer is no, I'm done. Because why do I want to then invest and spend more time with the people that I'm not having a good time? And sometimes I'm like, this is probably going to be a good moneymaker, but I don't want to, life's too short. So did I have a good time? And then I look at it and say, can I be helpful? I only invest if I think I'm going to be able to help. That doesn't mean I always do. Sometimes I think I can be helpful, and then I can't help, or they don't want my help. But at least that's the beginning premise. Is the business going to do something that is worthwhile doing? You know, back when I invested in AdMob, I was doing ad networks and movie reviews and a bunch of stuff that were not necessarily making the world a better place. Now I try to stay away from that. And I'm like, is this something really worthwhile? And then, honestly, the last thing is, hopefully, am I gonna make some money here? If I think I'm gonna lose money, I probably won't do it. But that's really tends to be the last thing to look at.
Super interesting. And so I think that after hearing so many stories, people here are starting thinking, okay, maybe the only way to do business is being in Silicon Valley, because all these things are happening. And I think that there is an important part of this that is true. But for you, do you think that this is totally true, or have you ever seen other patterns that turn out to be great companies?
So definitely no. Meaning, Silicon Valley has some awesome aspects to it, and it helps in many ways. And there's certain types of companies where it's hard maybe to do it outside. But in general, it has lots of problems as well. I tell you, Strava, company where I recently left the board, but was there from the beginning. We just opened actually 6 months ago, we opened an office in Denver because we're really struggling to find talent in Silicon Valley. Hiring is so hard, office space is so hard, cost of living is so hard. So sure, there's also the concentration of investors and talent and so on, but I don't think it's by any means a slam dunk for someone who's, say, in Italy, who say, I have to be there. I would say, if you have a core team, if it's just, I sometimes see one or two founders and I'm going to go to Silicon Valley to build a team, that's really, really hard. Okay. If you have a core team and you're going to move there with a core team, then building around the team, that's easier. And I've worked a lot with teams that have moved there, like StumbleUpon that you mentioned before. They were in Canada, so I helped them move from Canada to Silicon Valley.
That was not a company, so that started in California. They were from Canada.
No, they were from Western Canada, but by the time they moved to California, they already had the core team. They had some traction. Scan, a company that I also helped that got acquired by Snapchat, they were in Utah. Same thing, they moved. So you need to look at the pros and cons, and also you need to look at the founders and what makes sense for them, what kind of motivation they have. Maybe Rome is not the right place, but maybe they need to move to London or to Berlin or to New York. So no, it's not just about Silicon Valley, for sure.
And you did a company in Mexico. Did they move to California?
Well, so that's a really interesting one. Corner Shop, which actually just got acquired by Walmart. It's been the largest exit in Mexico today. So that's really, it's really cool because for foreigners, all of a sudden you see, wow, look, this company got acquired by Walmart for $225 million. The founders initially were in Silicon Valley, although one of them was Chilean-Swedish, Oscar, and the other one was Chilean. They had the technical team in Chile, but Oscar wanted to live in Silicon Valley, but the market was Mexico. So it didn't make any sense. He moved to Mexico City and built a team between Mexico City and Chile, and that turned out really well.
Okay, great. And so I will ask the video guys to go offline if you're recording for a second. And Silvio, just tell me if we can do it. Tell me yes or no. Yes. Tell me if you are lying. And okay. So, and what you asked me, I want a revenge. Basically, I want to ask you the same thing. So, you will feel the same difficult question, and maybe the answer will help the people here to take an action to do things. So you asked me, Marco, think of the future in 15 years. And is there anything that you should be doing today to not miss an opportunity or to not regret not having done such a thing. So, for you, now ask the same thing to you.
Yeah. So the motivation for this question, other than I think it's just a great exercise and fun, and we actually had a fun conversation last night. Is, I look back, and for example, I look at domains. So I registered in 1993 polar.org. I didn't even get polar.com because back then you were supposed to only use .coms for commercial use, and I wanted polar.org for my personal use. And sure, but I could have gotten any domain I wanted, and I didn't see it. And had I been more thoughtful, thinking, wait a minute, this domain thing is going to be very valuable, it would have been pretty easy to then get lots of domains and leverage that. So I was having this conversation also with some friends recently, which is how is the world going to change significantly 10 or 15 years out that in the future we're going to go, oh, it would have been helpful to know it. It's not just, by the way, it's not just about helpful to do a business opportunity, but it could be helpful from a personal standpoint. And some of the conversation we had yesterday, I think, was also personal, more personal than business. I obviously don't know, and I wouldn't, the answer I'm going to give is not like, wow, let's go do this. I think, and I hate it when entrepreneurs go chase a wave. You got to go with what you enjoy. Some of the best projects, the best startups are people solving their own problems. Like, I can't get out of the nightclub, somebody to pick me up. Garrett wasn't chasing the mobile to car space. But anyway, enough preamble. I mean, the one area that I think about, I'm trying to figure out, okay, this is going to be a big change. And I think most people agree, but it's not obvious what the implications are, is transportation, which is 10 to 15 years out. Self-driving cars are going to be pretty prevalent. Flying, drones that carry people, I believe, are going to be maybe not as prevalent as self-driving cars, but pretty accessible. So I've been thinking about that and thinking, if I look back once that's a reality, what should have I done? Should I have bought a beach house in a place that now is too hard to get to, but in the future will be easy to get to, and now I'll be able to afford it, but if I wait, I won't be able to afford it? Or what else? I mean, I don't know. There are lots of changes that are coming. I think the one about people having more free time, hopefully. I don't know if that's 10 or 15 or 25 years, but with everything that's going with automation and so on, will people have more free time? And if so, what does that mean about hobbies and learning and how that whole space that now is just what people do with the little extra time they have? Well, if that becomes a big chunk of the time that people spend, that industry might grow dramatically. So anyway.
Thank you so much. I think that the question actually is something that everybody should ask itself. That is the beauty really is the question, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Thank
so.
you for that question tonight, yesterday. And I want to ask anyone from the audience as a good question or just a question?
No, only good ones.
Yeah. Hey, we have Gianluca.
Couple of things. One, very serious. If Marco brought you a good restaurant, he's usually a friend of mine. Less important thing.
It's true. He guessed the restaurant.
Taverna di Lussa.
It was.
One less important thing. The very few words that you said. I'm from Venezuela. I wanted to make a startup. How did you get the information what a startup is, that you can go there, get the money? I mean, Venezuela is not known for technology and startups. How did you get there? Then you said you're lucky, but I don't believe luck.
Well, I mean, luck plays a part. Obviously, you have to improve the chances of getting lucky, and you have to be prepared to take advantage of lucky breaks. So the two things go hand in hand. Well, so a few things. One is Venezuela in some ways is remote, in some ways it's not. I mean, Caracas, where I grew up, is 2.5 hours from Miami. So I did go to the US with some frequency, and I did go to MIT for undergrad. So I was very immersed in technology. And then I worked in Japan, also in technology. So technology was something that I sort of like grew up with. When I was in high school, I was programming an Apple II. So I'm a geek, if you will. But I think the second half of the question is interesting, which is how did I get the money? The truth is, in 1994, without early stage funds or anything like that, I was really struggling to raise my first money for my first company. And I had all the connections. I mean, I knew the people at Kleiner Perkins and all the top VCs, and they didn't believe in the internet. I mean, the top guy at Kleiner Perkins told me, Ariel, this web thing is a waste of your time, go do interactive TV. Another, the very top investors, guy who's, since then has backed Facebook and all sort of other things, told me, Ariel, people don't like this Jeep, rough of the web. They want air conditioned. Go do something on AOL. These guys are, so I was struggling because A, they didn't believe in it, and B, there was very little fun. So a friend of mine helped me connect with an investor in Texas, of all places. And this guy, who was an old guy, he didn't know anything, but he's like, okay, this seems cool. I'll give you a little bit of money. And he offered me $300,000 for a third of the company. Now, I remember calling my mom, or maybe it was Cindy that I called first, like, it's going to be worth $1 million post money. That's amazing. It was like, super exciting. I mean, now people would throw up on you. It's like, what? 300,000? You kidding me? You're a thief. But back then, that was a big deal. And the crazy thing is that one of those VCs that I was in communication with who didn't understand anything, actually from Sutter Hill Ventures, one of the top VCs, I sent him the term sheet and say, hey, Tanj, what do you think? And he's like, you know what? We'll do it. I don't know anything about what you're trying to do, but I think you're going to do well. So it was not easy, but I'll say one last thing. If you believe in something and you're excited about doing it, even if you end up not being able to raise the money and it doesn't happen, at least you had a good time, you learn, and then maybe next time around. I see so many entrepreneurs who just can't pull it off the first few times, but then they do it. So I think that's the mentality.
Thanks, super. Next. Where do I have it? I don't see it. Okay. So if you have, yeah. Here it is. As soon as they know it's offline, then they ask questions.